thank you again for joining us. We're at day 2 of Modern Day Marine, and we are super excited to be welcoming Miles Vining back to the show, man. Thank you again for coming.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. This is so cool.
Well, thanks so much, Vic. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to come on board.
Yeah. So I think last time we talked to you, you were in Afghanistan. Is that correct? And we had gotten on Teams connection.
I was in Ukraine.
I mean, Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
in Eastern Ukraine.
We talked about
Afghanistan and Ukraine.
Yeah, your life is so interesting. It's hard to keep track of what's going on. But yeah, so we definitely want to touch a little more on that. But what brings you to Modern Day Marine? How's things going so far for you?
I'm coming to Modern Day Marine now that I'm based in the Virginia area. Meeting with various people here, talking about various situational awareness devices that are out there.
Okay.
Something that I'm getting into in the sort of using a DoD program called ATAC, and then how it and I used it in Ukraine as well, using it for enhanced situational awareness in terms of what's happening around you, better team tracking, better geospatial understanding of the environment around you. And there's this whole ecosystem that's sort of sprung up around TAC within the DoD, but also outside of the DoD in private industry as well, and various different solutions. There's firefighters getting into it. There's law enforcement getting into it. I'm getting into it from a relief humanitarian perspective and also a media security perspective, which is what I was using it for. But yeah, that's kind of what brings me here now, and trying to see all the different devices and the hardware and the gear that works with it. A bunch of them are here. You've got companies like iGov, Persistent Systems, Ares Defense, a couple of these other groups, and that's my primary interest. In addition, I mean, Modern Day Marine is always such a big deal in the expo world. You always got to make sure you got to tick your expo boxes to go to, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so when you're talking about this enhanced situational awareness, are we talking like sensors, or are we talking like sort of almost like a Blue Force tracker sort of thing, or yes to both? Or?
Yes to both and more.
Okay.
And that's the crazy thing about TAC. It's this DoD created but open source, available in the wild to everybody. And it's an open source thing that's compatible with if you're a software developer and you can tinker here and there. Civilians can make their own plugins that once they get signed off by the TAC Product Center, then they can get incorporated into it. So if you have a plugin for whatever you want, you can insert it into it. So yes, you can use it to track other people on it on an LTE connection, or using things like satellite communications, or using these various radios and mesh networks and sending your location securely over radios. So yeah, you can use it for that. You can also use it to see when a hurricane is billowing in. You can see, firefighters are using it to track fires and their teams around it. I was using it in Ukraine to make sure I was understanding where the Russian lines were, and then where the axes of advance were, what roads were cut off, pinning different checkpoints and block points and stuff like that, and then to track the team that I was working with there as well. So it's an open source ecosystem that is honestly, whatever you want to use it for. Yeah.
Well, last time we spoke to you, you were in Ukraine, and we couldn't really talk about Ukraine because the Kremlin was obviously listening in on us because we're highly valuable, sensitive information at MC Scuttlebutt. Oh yeah, dozens. But so do you mind telling me, our audience, like what were you doing over there? What were your experiences like? What were your observations?
Yeah, I was working for a security company that was working with a media company. So I was a security advisor for them, and my job was to work with the journalists, my journalist team that was assigned to me, and plan, advise, consult, and then also drive for them, be on the lookout for them. I mean, because journalists have a tendency in conflict zones and anywhere, they get very tuned into the story. So my job was to be there, like, okay, well, what else are we missing here? What are the security concerns, both from an enemy perspective, but also from something as simple as, hey, we might want to step away from that down power line because we don't want to get electrocuted today. Coordinating back with our talk, so to speak, and saying, hey, we're going to go hit up this area for this story of interest. We're going to go over here. This is the risk level. This is what's acceptable. This is what we want to do. And work in that comms piece, which SATCOM and radio came into play, and that's why TAC was very important to me in figuring out what we were doing and going where. And that was my job from May to October last year.
So, and I know you've got, we've talked a lot about your experiences working with Free Burma Rangers. Obviously, like I misspoke earlier about Afghanistan, but you're working in Tajikistan with Afghan refugees, or at least trying to facilitate the refugee, the displaced people there. What were some of your things, like, I know because your worldview is very compassionate and open-hearted. Like, how did that feel for you to be sort of on this security detail, seeing really all of this chaos around you? Like, did it sort of galvanize your want to sort of be like running toward the chaos, or
Oh, yeah.
what was some of that? What were some of your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed being that security advisor because it occupied a neutral space, so to speak. We weren't. I mean, yeah, the Russians would have loved to have smoked a news team here and there and
Sure.
say it was just an accident, because I mean, we're the people that were. I mean, the news teams are the guys that are, you know.
Yeah, you're going against the narrative.
Yeah,
Man.
we're showing the atrocities, we're showing the graves, we're showing this and everything. And I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to say we is that I helped facilitate that. I'm not doing that, but I'm not in the media space, so I'm not the one on the camera.
Well, you're facilitating it.
Yeah,
So.
I'm on the one on the security side, but I really enjoyed it because it was a very neutral space. So I got to see a part of the war in Ukraine from a point of view that's very that can be difficult to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're on the Ukrainian side, it's like you still see only your little piece. Maybe if you're in the if you're in the ZSU, the Ukrainian army, it's like you only see your little part of the front line. Or if you're a humanitarian, you only see your little sector that you're helping. But as a security advisor, I was supporting our teams in Kyiv, in Zaporizhia, in Kharkiv, in Donbass, in Kramatorsk. So I got to go all over the country. I got to see so much of the country, so many of the elements in the war, from doing a story that we do a story with law enforcement, and then embed with the unit, or then go to an artillery unit, and then go to a humanitarian side. So I got to see so many facets of the war that I got to really take in, and I really enjoyed that, and it really sort of reinforced my interest in wanting to be at that point in friction, and wanting to be that sort of wanting to be a player that can make a difference in that high-risk environment for a better good.
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
What was it like then for you to see this conflict happening in a place where, like, we had a guest on yesterday who was in Ukraine helping out, and he said that some of the guys would, like, take Ubers to the front line.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so to have, and I think it's a concept for us as Americans that we don't really quite gather that, dude, these are guys not just fighting for their homeland. In many cases, are fighting for their homes. Like, the front is that close. You can just Uber to it if you need to.
Yeah, so in his case, he was probably talking about a service called BlaBlaCar, which BlaBlaCar is I left a pair of binoculars behind in either Poland or somewhere, and I actually had somebody get on BlaBlaCar, and I paid them like 300 hryvnias to take binoculars from Poland to me in Kyiv, and I was like, okay, where are you going to after that? And the driver looked up to me and was like, dude, I'm going to go fight. Like, my unit's in Donbass. Like, because BlaBlaCar works by people saying, yeah, I'm driving this way anyways. Throw me some cash,
kidding.
and then I'll take this little item to you, or you can drive people or something.
That's amazing.
But that's like every day, in the Ukrainian context. And it definitely is, a groundswell of support. In terms of the entire country is at war, from the very bottom to the very top. And in terms of, people are fighting for their land, you got videos of Ukrainian soldiers, like, there's this one famous video of this guy, he's, like, just running into a village, and, like, he just throws down his AK and just, like, picks up his son, and, like, because that's his village, and that was under Russian occupation, and now they've just liberated it, and now he's, like, running towards his kid, right? But that's, like, you cannot compare that, and, like, you cannot compare that very much in the American context. You have examples of maybe like American Afghans or American Iraqis who are going to Iraq or Afghanistan, they're in a place where they formerly lived or something like that. But that is so rare and hard to connect to as Americans. And Ukrainians, it's like, no, that's the reality of what they're doing, And you have just, you have like, tragic stories and stuff of, like one of my friends there, it's like his parents lived in Kherson, and when the offensive was coming, they didn't know which, like they couldn't run towards the Ukrainian side, so they ran towards Crimea. And it's like, because I was like, great, Kherson's liberated. How are your parents? And he's like, my parents are actually in a worse situation than they were before, because they didn't want to be in Kherson doing like a full-on urban battle, so they ran to Crimea. But they don't want to be in Crimea either. You know, so you
occupied.
So you have that kind of dichotomy of tragedy in that sense, right? But yeah, it's just a groundswell of support and of fighting. I mean, you have, you know, people just put, you know, numbers online and they say, hey, like this unit needs this, or we need this amount of drones, or, you know, this guy's family, this guy has just been killed. Like, here's the number to donate to his mono bank in Ukraine, and people just like donate the funds and stuff like that. So you have that happening at so many different specters of society. It's something we have utterly no idea about in the U.S. Actually,
it's hard to even conceive of it. I mean, other than, you know, obviously you having been in war and now sort of on the, I don't want to say the outside looking in, but not in a uniformed, like you don't have a mission and objective. You're not following orders per se. But even for me, like that's hard to conceive of. I obviously, like, ideologically I get it, or theoretically I get it, but like to really try to put myself in those into those shoes, man, it's a hard thing to do.
As someone who's done significant research in military history, as well as having fought in a war yourself, what were some of, I guess, the big standout characteristics of the changing character of war that you witnessed while in Ukraine?
The thing that makes me, the changing characteristics and looking at the fight, makes me kind of fear for the U.S. and makes me really want to sort of bring the message home for NATO but more for our military, is that we are not the context that is happening in Ukraine. I mean, the best way to put this, I think, is one time I was talking with one of my security advisor colleagues about like foreign volunteers coming to help, and you have all these foreign volunteers who show up and they're like, you know, I got this many deployments in Afghanistan, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm an 18 Delta, or I'm SF,
I got this challenge
whatever.
coin, and I got the T-shirt.
Yeah, I got all this stuff. And we made a little joke right there. We were like at the recruitment center, like coming into Ukraine. The first question on the checkboard should be like, "Were you in World War II?" No, noted. You know, and it's funny, but it's like the meaning of that is like, do you know? Okay, you have all this stuff. Do you know? Can you fight in a trench? Can you fight against, can you work with anti-air? Can you work with main battle tanks coming down on your position? Can you work with hordes of Russians and Wagnerettes like coming at you? Like, this is the reality of a full-scale modern war. I mean, the last generation of Americans who knew how to fight this are now all from the Second World War. It's like, how did you work a combined arms infantry, you know, tank, aircraft, artillery, then anti-air, and now cyber. Well, less cyber and stuff.
Space,
you know, all that thing. Multi-domain spectrum, right? It's like, how do you do that and suffer tons of casualties and still win? You know, and that's something we don't know how to do. We just, you know, I mean, we plan for it and we have all these exercises, but it's like we cannot grasp the reality of it. And I wish we could be more in tune with it, because I feel like there's like an attitude from the U.S. side of saying like, oh, that's happening over there, that doesn't really affect us, but I'm kind of concerned. And it's like, you know, when first platoon is gone, it's like, well, what do you do now? It's like, you know, we're not used to that. And you have a lot of foreign volunteers. I mean, to include myself, who went over there, who were like just blown away. And you have a lot of guys who were there and said, you know, the Ukrainians, they stuck me on this outpost, on this OP, and it was a suicide mission, and it was like that. And it was like, yeah, it's a suicide mission if all you know is 24/7 support and air support and everything, and you've got all the elements stacked up behind you. Yeah, that's a suicide mission. But guess what? The entire Ukrainian front line is on a suicide mission. It's like, that's modern war. It's like, you know, you're holding this, you know, you're going to go and hold that hill, and you're going to hold it until you die. And that's how that works. There's no support. We might try to send some reinforcements to you, but guess what? You need support, and every other position on this front line needs support too.
Yeah, it's like
so,
destruction criteria. What is that?
Yeah.
It's like, just because I'm down to 70% doesn't mean I'm going to stop fighting.
Exactly.
Right?
You know, and we're not used to that, and that's something that we're going to have to get used to if we're going to go up against.
Or if nothing
anything
else, because I'm not trying to be prophetic or read any tea leaves here, but most likely we'll be fighting on somebody else's turf.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to understand, or at least start to come to grips with that mentality, that for many folks that we're going to come in contact with and have conflict with, that is going to be their reality. And so we can't just think that, well, I'll do some sort of bombardment and they'll drop them down to 65%, and then, of course, they'll capitulate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Dude, a lot of these guys are going to die in place, man.
Exactly. So that's just like a reality that we don't know what that's like. The last Americans to fight something like that was the Korean War and the Second World War. Second World War more so because it has that element of maneuver warfare with air and tanks and everything.
Yeah.
But
well, and also too, we got so used to this idea or this enemy that was focused on the long fight.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew that they were on their home turf, so they could withdraw and just sort of tap our resources until we got tired of being there, and then would take off, right? So, but now we're looking at a near-peer competitor that is going to go toe-to-toe with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is also a dynamic I don't think we're necessarily really come to full grips with yet.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, obviously in Ukraine, Russians clearly took that for granted, and here they are almost, 18 months later.
Yeah, it's, a 3-day special military operation has evolved into a paramilitary company moving on Moscow. Like, this is whoever's writing the script for this has gone batshit crazy.
I was laughing with William yesterday that, like, I went sort of on a news fast because I've just had this, like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling thing. So I went off the net for like 3 days, and then I got back on. I think it was Sunday night. I'm like,
what?
Dude, the world ended. I missed it.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? Like, we had an insurrection that then was not won, and now the head of the Wagner group is on the run to like.
Yeah.
It was, dude. Anyways, I digress big time. But
well, that's like the Ukrainians took it with such an amazing sense of humor because Ukrainians just also have this awesome sense of humor, and the whole country just started making fun of the Wagner thing, and as like they were like eating popcorn and watching it, like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool, we get a couple hours off here while they try to deal with this insurrection.
Exactly, and I was the same way. I was mounting. I was like every little thing, like, oh, they took Rostov. Oh, they're going. Oh, they shot an Mi-8 out of the sky. Wow, let's keep it up, guys. Like, I hate you, but you're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, Wagner turns around. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was sort of like, I can imagine because I didn't catch it to the end, but like, I don't want to root for you, but I kind of.
I don't. I was Googling like because I live in Fauquier County, Virginia. It's like blast zone of Washington D.C. I'm like, okay, I just bought a house further out. Maybe I gotta go. Maybe work on the house this weekend. Like I was like, Russia. As much as I don't like Putin, a Russian civil war does not sound like a good time.
No, I mean we've dealt with plenty of power vacuums. One in Russia probably doesn't do well for like the global scale.
Yeah.
Well, Miles, dude, so just to remind our listeners, you authored the book Into Hellman with The Walking Dead. Absolutely fantastic book. We talked about your work with Free Burma Rangers. You've also got a blog post. You obviously, left the Marine Corps. Now you're transitioning into Air Force Reserve. You're here looking at, you are the man of transition. Like, what can our listeners sort of take from you other than this idea of, like, just don't give up? I mean, it's really easy to say grow where you're planted, but, like, what's that driving force for you? Like, what sort of, other than, maybe coffee, like, what gets you out of bed? Which I don't even think you do coffee, right? You're just naturally driven. Like,
no, I do coffee for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of transitioning for guys getting out of the fleet, either retired or EASing kind of thing, like, is that the point of view? Is that the
no,
perspective?
just for anybody, because we go through, like, obviously uniform members go through PCS. Go through, you're going to leave the service at some point. But the other of our listeners, like, I'm going to change jobs, or I'm going to move locations, or my parents are getting older and sick, and now I've got to uproot, or I'm getting a new kid. I wasn't expecting a kid, or like all of these things. Like, we're just in a world of transition. But you seem to be, I don't want to downplay and say you're embracing it, but you definitely are, like, continuing that march towards chaos. On a very admirable sort of way. I just wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit on that?
I think I think there's this quote from David Goggins that really stood out to me in a podcast. I mean, he talked about it with Joe Rogan, right? He said this thing where it's like what did he say? He said something to the extent of he preloaded life because someone was like, "Oh, your knees are shot, man. Like you have no cartilage left. There's like, what are you gonna do now? You can't run anymore because you're literally grinding bone on bone." And he's like, "I'm fine because I preloaded. I did the hardest stuff I could when I was younger, so I can not rest later, but it's like I did everything I could to take advantage of." Right? I mean, no, that just kind of drives me a lot these days in terms of, what can I do? What can I do now that I will never be able to do again later? That's something that's really driving me. I think these days a lot in terms of, I need to do the things, be involved in the activities and whatever that is that I can do now that I won't be able to do later. Like someday I will not be able to go out and run. Someday I will not be able to travel overseas. Someday I will not be able to be as mobile or this or that. And I want to do everything that I can now so I can't later. So in terms of like jobs or transitioning things or education stuff, it's like, what are those things I can do now? And and right now I'm sort of stacking my life in terms of, okay, there's these things I want to do, but I can always do those. But there's these things over here that I can't always do. I will not be able to do that, so I want to do that now. So that's sort of influencing like going back into the service for me and looking at other opportunities and really just pushing forward and just, I don't know, I'm kind of, some people hate this about me in terms of I can be very persistent. Like I think like there is a guy who I was traveling with him going, I was waiting for him to get off. He was in 2.6, I was in 1.9, and he was waiting to get off his safety brief for the weekend. And I was already off. I was ready to go, and we were both going to DC. And I just called him like 26 times in a row. I was just persistent. Yeah. And he eventually came back. He's like, "Dude, why did you call me so much?" I was like, I was persistent.
Because you weren't answering.
Yeah, you weren't answering. I wanted to go to DC, and you were my ride, And he was like, "Dude, like my phone was vibrating in my pocket for like 30 minutes straight."
You had a really long safety brief.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just but that's my sort of attitude, just persistence. Just go and just keep pushing, and then I run up against the door and it's closed, or this is closed, or that. I don't care. I'll just keep knocking and keep going.
So it's
that's
more
kind
than
of been
just like embrace the suck. Like you really sort of going forward, like more proactive sort of.
I think so. Yeah. And that's just my sort of idea, and just pushing forward, and just don't stop, and just not stop pushing. I don't know. That's kind of been my sort of philosophy, and then praying as well, doing a lot of praying and asking God, where do you want me? How do I go forward? I don't know where I can be best served in many different ways.
Man,
what do I do?
Discernment, man, that's a hard one. Well, William, you got anything else for our?
So, as a Marine yourself, what do you recommend to any whether officer enlisted when they're coming to modern day Marine? How can they make the most of this opportunity?
I think I would say if you're like, I look around and I see all these guys in chucks walking around, different, they're officers. I see guys with like their pizza stripe Lance Corporals going around. I'm like, man, I remember when I was you a decade ago. But it's like maybe look around and see all the other people doing stuff, and ask them like, how did they get to where they were doing? And you could have that direct interaction with other civilians and realize like there is like, outside of the Marine Corps, there also is a world as well. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, you make the best of what you have at this current point, but realize that you can still keep driving forward, outside, or if you want, stay in and retire, but you can still just keep pushing, just the same attitudes you have in the fleet, just keep that train on a roll, right? Because you look at all these civilians out there that are doing stuff, and then there's also like all these other civilians here that are also in uniform too, that are in a reserve or a guard capacity, and that's something that I think I wish I would have tapped in more now that I'm back in the guard. But after getting out, I wish I would have tapped more into a reserve or a guard status for a lot of different ways. So there's so many different opportunities
maintaining
out
that
there.
Community,
and just ask people like, how did you get to where you are now, kind of thing? Because a lot of guys who get out. Well, especially, I mean, I can only really talk more for like first timers who do their 4-year contract, like me, for example. But it's like it's like a cliff to walk off of, and people can be very uncertain about going off. Like, what do I do on the other side of this?
For
like,
sure.
you know, are things as peachy as people make them out to be? And you know, there's hard things about that too. But you know, look around and see what what works for other people, and you know, get into that.
Yeah.
Right, awesome. We'll appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thank you again, man, for stopping by. And oh, by the way, congratulations on your marriage.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah.
it.
Welcome to the
Recently
club.
married, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's awesome, man. So again, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to sit down with you. This has been really great.
Yeah,
man.
please keep doing cool stuff so we can get more content.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, man, we'll stay in touch. But have a fun day today.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Vic, and thanks for picking up the podcast. I love listening to it as well.
Oh, thank you for
Absolutely.
that, man.
Cool.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Green Forest Extension. I am William Keating. You've also heard the voices and contributions of Vic Rubel, USMC retired,